Hey, we are here, Serch Says Podcast. This is a special edition because for me to get Mr. Edgerrin James,
Correct.
Edgerrin James, he forced me, and I do mean physically forced me to come to his secret location and shoot here. So, Mr. James, thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it. No, seriously,
No,
thank
I
you.
appreciate
No.
you having me on.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool. And to work at nighttime, that's
Yeah.
when I like to move around. So
Yeah.
I couldn't do the morning thing. So we got to do it where it makes sense for you want to. So it's a good show.
Well, I mean, you must have been someone who got exhausted from doing everything in the daytime for football and workouts and training and all of that. I mean, was that kind of your routine coming up, as a young athlete, every day, blank AM, getting up, team meetings, practice, workouts, training? I mean, how many years did it go on?
It was a job. It turned into a job. It started out as a game, and then it turned into a job. So, but I always knew that once it's over, no more morning times for me, and nothing unless it's something major or something super important. But anything that's on my clock, it'll happen in the night hours. So that's when I'm at my best.
Is that something that you kind of always wished for as a young kid too, to kind of be on your own schedule? And is that something that you kind of looked for and look forward to? Like, because obviously when we're all young, man, we're all like, mama says this, we got to fix to this, and we got to do this. So, you get to a point where almost rebellion becomes second nature. You're almost like, okay, everything I did before, I'm going to do the polar opposite. I'm going to eat dinner at breakfast. I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and, act like it's daytime. Is that always been something that you kind of looked forward to?
Well, for me, it was all part of the plan. You got to do what you're supposed to do. You got to follow rules. But then when you become the head honcho, or when you get in control of everything, you kind of create it the way you want it. And that's what kind of my slogan is: create the life you want to live. So when you see me, you see everything that I've ever thought of, everything that I've ever envisioned, and I kind of brought it to life. And some things may match what others deem as right, and some things may be like, hey, why you do this that way? But it's been over the course of years developing, and I'm like, okay, this is what makes more sense for me. This is what is better for me. It's not inconveniencing nobody else because this is my show, this is my lifestyle, and I'm not cramping my style, to try to fit in or try to do something else. And so I always knew, I say, if I ever put myself in that position, which I've always looked forward to put myself in that position, I'm gonna move when I get ready. It's like I don't really want to have to live off an alarm clock. I don't want an alarm clock. I want when my body naturally wakes up, that's when I'm up. When my body naturally goes to sleep, that's when I go to sleep. Unless I have a big business move or something very important to kind of say, hey, we need to overrule that mindset because this right here is going to help enhance that what you're trying to build.
Yeah, my mom, I remember, may she rest in peace, she would always say to me that the world doesn't work on my clock. Like, I can't be on my own clock. I have to be, my very rebellious self would be like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong, Mom. I love you, but I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to live on my clock.
But
like,
it's a motivating factor, so
yeah.
You was driven from it. And I think it's with anybody. You're driven from things that you couldn't do or things that people say, hey, you can't have this or you're not capable of doing that. And okay, let me see if I can figure out a way to do it and do it the right way, I'm going to prove them wrong. And it actually gives me a challenge, it gives me something to go at. And so it's just like what you're saying. You said when your mom said the world don't move on your clock, you had to say, hey, Mom, one day it's going to move on my clock.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your mom like? What are kind of some of the things that she kind of put in place in your life as regiment, things that you had to maintain when you were coming up?
Well, my thing was like, I was always the man of the house, and the main thing for us, don't get in trouble, don't get in trouble. So when she say you got a lot of freedom, you can, have more freedom than most, but don't get in trouble. All that do is make me get my game together. You know, make me think things through, because all I ever thought about was not getting in trouble. As long as I don't do something to get in trouble, I'm gonna have all the freedom that I want. And I felt, you know, as a teenager, you know, that you actually feel good being able to say, man,
Oh,
look,
yeah.
I can, as long as I don't get in trouble, as long as I make good decisions. So it helped me make better decisions, because I had to think of, man, I would lose all my privileges. I would lose everything if I got in trouble. So I stayed on my game. You know, I stayed making sure that every move I made was strategic, and not knowing that it was going to carry over into my adult life, but just knowing that as a teenager, that was the one rule that was set. You know, it took me so far, and it just made me be real smooth with how I do things, and made me think out things.
I love how you said that, you know, you realized that you would, if you stayed out of trouble, you would keep all this freedom. It doesn't sound like it was fear-based. It sounded like it was free-based. You know, it sounds like your mom was this very loving, giving, kind of almost liberal human being that said to you, hey, there are consequences to the rules that I put in your house. I'm not going to instill fear in you. I'm going to instill freedom in you. Was it very different for the people around in your hood, the people you grew up with? You know, you talk about moving strategically, but I've always learned that when you move strategically, you're always kind of watching how other people move, the mistakes they make, because you have a lot of lessons that you can learn in your own environment, right? Like there's people that you say, oh, that dude over there, he's gonna do X, and then he winds up getting in trouble, and then he's gone, right?
Right. And for me, that was like the biggest motivating thing. You know, it's like I'm younger than most people, and I was naturally bigger than my age. So my peers, my group, I was, you know, physically I was a little bigger than everybody else. So I would always hang with the people that were older, you know, people that, you know, were more experienced in doing things. So you sit back and you just watch everything, and you just make sure that, hey, long as I don't get in trouble, long as I don't do nothing that puts me in harm's way, you know, I can kick it with the big boys, you know. But it teaches you a discipline too, you know, because you got to know, hey, I need to be going home, or I need to be doing these things for school. I need to be doing things, because all that still falls up in that category of trouble, you know.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm not doing things to make sure that I'm eligible in school, you know, that's trouble.
Right.
You know? So when you break all those things down, you start looking at it and saying, hey, look, man, let me make sure that I'm taking care of my responsibility, because I love that freedom, you know. Right. And to this day, that's what I fight for. I fight for my freedom. No matter what I'm doing, I want to be free. And I think any human being, if you ever get a chance to be free, you know, you never want to give that up.
No,
you know?
definitely not. And you know, when you were going through high school also, and obviously there's a lot of pressure on an athlete that was as celebrated as you were, not only during high school, but coming out of high school. How tough, how difficult was that discipline junior and senior year, when those decisions have to get made, when those coaches come calling, but also when the block comes calling and say, yo, don't forget me when you go to D1. Don't forget me. I got you. I was the dude on the block who held you down. Don't forget me when you go here and there. How difficult was that discipline to kind of keep you framed going into the University of Miami and making that decision?
Well, for me, it wasn't really different, because there was no situation where, okay, you have this person on the block saying this. It's about family with me. You know, I grew up around a lot of family, you know, so when you have family
big family
around you, yeah, big family, and when you have family around you and they have your best interests and everybody understands each other, you know, you're not concerned with this. You know, most people want to see you excel, or they want to see you doing things, because you not only represent yourself, you represent the family. You know, like it's a big deal to say, hey, that's my cousin, that's my brother. Hey, you know, all those things right there play a part in people actually, you know, pulling for you, you know.
Yeah.
And the difference is, but it changes. You know?
Right.
On the way up, everybody pulls for you. But then once you get up and you're not able to fix everybody's problem, now they go against you.
Why does it become that way? Why do you think people expect you to become the fixer? It's like you're coming up in high school, you got this great O-line, right? Somebody's protecting the quarterback's blind side. I mean, even though you're an RB, you're a QB, who is that guy, who is that uncle, that cousin, that sister, that brother that protected your blind side? Who is
Well,
that
it's
person?
for me. I never single out one person because it was always a group of people. Everybody has some good in them, and so I was always able to identify the good in people. The good in this situation. If this person was good at this, that's what I would deal with them on, and I took that right to business. I only talk to people in business that are doing the things that I want to do or that I'm interested in doing. Right. Because if you don't, you set yourself up for failure. It's like I don't need a jack of all trades. I need a person that said, look, man, if this is what you do, that's what you do. And it's kind of the same thing. I kind of take that same little analogy from when you're dealing with people. You're dealing with people and they are good for this. They're good for that. And you find a comfort level in this, but they might not be as well as this, but there's somebody else that's extremely well in this, or somebody that you say, hey, I can kind of get a couple ideas from and learn from them. So I learned from a variety of people, and that's what made all of this, because it's not one person. You don't see somebody say, hey, that's who Edge reminds me of. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's uncles, brothers, family members, cousins, aunts, everybody, and I like to think it was a group effort,
of course,
in a sense, and
of course. I mean, they can't take your talent to the field, but they can certainly kind of help the talent to get to the field, right?
Yeah.
And that's always what it is. I love how you said that, everybody's there to kind of lift you up until the handouts come, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, when did this become a part of our relationship? Like, when did all of a sudden, because my talent got me to where I am, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to reap this benefit, why all of a sudden is it my responsibility to help you? How tough are those conversations to have with people that are there, that are family?
No, it's not. After a while, you become conditioned. You become like my grandma. My grandma.
Yo, let me tell you something. Yo, you spoke the realest shit ever. Yo, it's so true. You become conditioned. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's so true.
Nah, but it's the truth, man. Like, you become conditioned because you get used to it. It's like my grandma was great with breaking things down. When she was living, she would always, she had this thing. She said, if you keep on giving, you're gonna give your blessings away. So I have so many quotes from my grandma that only I get to see, because when I used to sit with my grandma, I would take and write things down. So I write this thing down, and they were life lessons. And all the way through my adult, even to now, I go back on those things right there, because this is the person who I would give anything. They don't want much. They didn't want nothing, and they just want to see you happy. And you're like, dang, that's when it's real. You're like, they understand that it's real, and then so everything else is just like white noise. And it's like, man, it's like everything was good until I got the money. It's like I'm the same kid. I'm the same kid that was here. I'm the same kid that was around. But now it's their problems become your problem, and it's not fair to you. But I didn't ask for the position, but I'm not gonna get a position up. So you have to take everything that goes with it. So you're gonna have people that's gonna have problems with the way you deal with things. And my thing is, I have a system in place. I'm gonna try to always be fair. I'm gonna try to help as many people as I can. But if you don't, the carriage moves without the horse. This horse gonna still be able to move no matter who gets mad.
Right.
And so you have.
You can only hitch one carriage to one horse at a time.
Yeah, and you can put a bunch of people in the carriage.
Right.
But the horse got to be strong enough to carry it.
That's exactly right.
So I understand the position. So you get conditioned to sit up and say, okay, well, I see where a person coming from, or this and that. But at the same time, you go back and you start thinking about how you got there. You're not gonna be somebody just lay up doing all this partying and this and that. Now I'm supposed to come fix your problem when I'm sitting around here grinding. I'm sitting around here doing this, and then I'm like, hey, let's make some money together. Let's do something together. It's like, and I used to think people want to help, and then it took me a while. They don't want help. They want handouts, And once you start realizing, it's like, okay, yeah, I see where it's coming from. I see how it's going. It's cool. It's not that big a deal. And then you have to learn how to tell people no and make things make sense, because, when it's all said and done, and when it's over, and if I don't have nothing, they don't have nothing, but they never had a chance to get anything because they wouldn't do what it take. I did everything that it took, but I fell for the bait and I gave it all away. Then it goes back to my grandma say, keep on giving, you're gonna give your blessing away. And you're blessed to be in certain positions. Don't give that blessing up. You know, you can help people, and I've done charity, I've done everything. I've helped millions of people. I'm gonna continue helping people. I still help the people that I know go against me, that talk about me. I still will help them because I understand while I'm in a position. No, I didn't ask for this position. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't ask to be here. I played a game. I played a game that I enjoyed playing, and this game compensated me and gave me a chance to take my family out of poverty, gave me a chance to take my mother to another. My mother hasn't worked since, I don't know what year. It's been that long. You know, it's been whatever. And so
It's got to feel so good, though.
yeah, and that's when you know you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing because you're constantly getting blessed with opportunities and things steady coming, and the people that have this to say and that to say, you just watch bad things that's happening to them.
Yeah.
And you just watch things go in the wrong direction when it's like, hey, man, you ain't gonna beat it, man. You might as well join it. You know, like, come on board, man. Let's get down.
Your grandmother sounds like an amazing person, man.
Oh yeah. Grandma, she kept everything in perspective, you know. And I'm just so glad I wrote down all the quotes. I used to write down all the quotes, and as I write
Where
down,
do you keep them?
I got it in my secret places, you know. I got them put up. I got a whole bunch of stuff. I just sit around and just let her say things. I would write it down. I would keep it, and not knowing that those are the things that, you know, that I lean on the days when people going against you, when things not going right. You know, you say, okay, yeah, I know I'm doing stuff the right way. So
Right. And you know, you
cool.
can go into the house and you can go into this box and you can look
Yeah,
for
you
that
just
one
go
thing.
back. Let me just go back to my basics. Let me go back to my notes and say, yeah. And you're like, man, fuck y'all.
You're allowed to say that, by the way. You can curse on there. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't curse a lot.
Yeah, no, but it's fine. But
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
saying you're able to. It's just like it
do you ever
validates things.
Yeah.
You
Do
know?
you ever sit back with your mom, like especially during holidays or when you have like some one-on-one time and go, hey, you remember when grandmama said yada yada yada? I just thought about that the other day because I was
She's not gonna, cause me and my grandma had our own relationship.
Gotcha,
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, that's where it's different. You know, that's where it was
Yeah.
different. It's like, I don't know why I'm the kid that was chosen, or the one that, you know, after school I had this thing where I would go to my grandma's house, go take a nap after school. You know?
Yeah.
And while I'm laying down there nap, she's talking to me. You know, it's like, and I'm not knowing that all this stuff is selling, but it became a routine. It became, you know, like, it became our little
safe.
thing. So
Yeah.
and it wasn't everybody else there, and I didn't set out to say I'm just gonna go here so me and grandma can get one-on-one time. It was just, I'm going here. I take my nap right here after school.
Because it's quiet.
It's quiet.
Safe,
And grandma
it's
is going to talking, and then the conversation as you go on, and you start saying like, dang, and it's real, you know. And then you start looking back, and I look back on all those years, and like, dang, man, you know what? It's a reason why I'm in this position. You know, like, I was being prepped for this. You know, I was being prepped for this all the while, and I didn't know I'm being prepped for this, but
grandma
I'm here.
did. Grandma did, because she had that life experience.
Yeah.
And she was able to pass that life experience to you. You know, her tragedies in her life became your triumph.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a dope aspiration to have as a young man, too, to have it subliminally put on you. You know, my grandmother, I lived in Far Rockaway, Queens, and I lived about 30 minutes from my grandmother by car. And I'll never forget this. I was like 15. And we were going to go, every Saturday I went to see my grandmother. She lived in Brooklyn. And one day I was just like, I don't know, I was just impatient. And I used to love riding my bike. And I lived near the water, right? So Far Rockaway is right on the Atlantic Beach Bridge. And I started riding my bike. And I was on, my parents' house, we lived on Beach 2nd. So I'm riding to Beach 19th, Beach 99th, Beach 119th, Beach 149th. I cross the bridge. I go on the Belt Parkway, the highway, on my bicycle. Rode my bike to my grandmother's house. 3-hour ride. Because I needed that energy. Because what my grandmother would do for me, see, I was a Jewish kid, so we weren't allowed to eat like McDonald's. We couldn't have like milk and meat. Like there were certain rules about things in my mother's house that we couldn't eat.
Right.
So my grandmother would be like, baby, I'm gonna take you to
She
McDonald's.
got you. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So so I needed that energy, and I rode my bike 4 hours on a highway, 15 years old. Didn't even think about it being dangerous. Didn't even think, just needed to do it. You know what I'm saying? And you have it. I'm actually envious of you because your grandmother was in walking distance of your school, your house. You had this freedom
Yeah.
to just enjoy that energy, you know?
But you didn't know it. You don't know it, or you don't realize it.
And that's
until
okay.
later, you
But
know?
that's
the
okay
thing
because you
about
have
it.
the notes and you have all of that. I mean, look, the one thing I love about your college years, and also, you know, you're in the NFL. Look, you didn't have the greatest college team in the world, but you were exceptional.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What were some of those challenges like for you and making the decision from, you know, going from college to the NFL and putting that team together, right? Like, you know, finding the right agent, finding the right team, as you said, to kind of put around you when you were going to make that decision, and knowing you were going to go where you were going to go.
Well, those things, one thing leads to another, you know, and you know, I try not to have somebody force me to do anything. Give me all the facts, give me all the information, and you know, once I get all that, I make a decision. I tried to put together a nice team. I had a strong team that was put together. That I was comfortable with, you know, and that gave you the confidence to do certain things, you know, and it make you where you say, okay, if I make a decision, I know I made the best decision, and that's what I always did. I still do it to this day, you know, with people who opinion I value. You know, I'll make sure I say, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. You know, I check here, check here, check here, check here, and by the time I do my homework, I don't go to a bunch of yes men or people who are afraid to tell me something. I try to go with people who I know is gonna be honest, because you know the first person you have to be honest with yourself. You know, so I'm always honest with myself, and it can be something that I really want to do, and nobody can stop me from doing what I want to do if it's something that I can just pull the trigger on right then and there, you know. But I said, man, I need to go through these channels. You know, I still go through those channels, and if I committed to going through these channels, that's what I'm gonna do from here on out, because that's what's protected me. You know, those are my layers of protection, you know. And so every time I made a decision, even back then, even to this day, it's going through those channels. It may be different people that I put in that group or that board. You know, I create this board myself. It's depending on the situation, you know. And it's different people every time, but all those people, they have certain things in common as far as, okay, this person's a straight shooter. This person doesn't need me. You know, this person right here is experienced in this. This person knows. And so when I go through that little formula, it puts things in my favor as far as decision making. And when I went through the same process with, you know, in college and going to the NFL, you know, always formulate a board, you know, formulate a group that is going to be honest and that's knowledgeable. You know, I'm not just going to somebody who sitting around getting hired talking about, man, if it was me or if I had that opportunity, I would do this, I would do that. You know, I'm going through a person that like, hey, so tell me about your experiences when you did this, or when you was faced with this situation or that situation. So once you start doing that, you know, you kind of cut out a lot of mistakes that you probably would have made, you know, and it kind of puts things in your favor.
Right. And when you were, you know, obviously, you know, I mean, Hall of Fame career. I mean, you know, less than 1% of the players that play in D1 get to the NFL, and then there's less than 1% make it to the Hall. You know, you talk about adversity with the team that you had. There was a lot of frustration in your time as a football player, as a pro. You know, what were some of the things that kind of got you off the ledge and kind of refocused you and rededicated you, you know, during those times where there were challenges where, like you said, it went from being fun to work?
Once you understand that it's a business, you know, all you can do is what you can do, you know. And for myself, it was always, you know what? I'm going to take care of my responsibility. I'm going to do everything I can do. Did I train? Did I train like I was supposed to? Did I study? Did I take care of my body like I was supposed to do? And then you realize it's bigger than yourself, because I can do everything right, but I'm still leaning on the next man, and the next man is leaning on the next man. So the first thing you have to do is take care of yourself. You know, in any situation or anything you have going on, you have to say, okay, look, I'm not going to be the problem. I'm not going to be the issue. I'm going to be part of the solution.
Yep.
And so I'm going to take care of myself and make sure I did all the stuff that I can do. Now, everybody else need to do their part, you know. And that's what happens when you're on good teams, you're in a good company or anything. If you got a good circle, you know, you take care of yourself first, you know, because a lot of people like to point fingers at everybody else, right, and they don't have their shit together, you know. Yeah. Like me, I'm going to try to have all my stuff together, and then I'm not going to point fingers at nobody, but I'm going to sit back here. The person up top, that's their job. You know, that's the reason you're at top. You're supposed to be able to identify all these things. And if you got a good person at top, it trickles down, and they're going to be able to identify the problem.
It seems to me the new NFL, you know, post everything that's happened socially, post Kaepernick, and maybe you notice this or not, and maybe it's just my own. There seems to be this, what I lovingly refer to as the LeBron legacy, which is LeBron seems to have more say on anyone he plays around than any other player I've ever seen, ever. Maybe Robinson Cano had some sort of similar thing in baseball. Did you find that you were, you know, like you said, part of the solution when they were going to draft, when they were going to consider, you know, parts of the team that needed adjustment? Did you feel your voice was properly heard when you would go to the GM or you'd go to your coach and say, hey, I don't know how you guys feel about blank, but I really think we need blank in our blank, like now?
Nah, it's not my job. You know, it's like everybody try to do somebody else's job. You have an owner, you have a general manager, you have scouts, you know, let them do their job. There's too many people try to do everybody else's job, unless you're a person I like the fact that LeBron is able to do something like that, because, man, he's getting championships. He's always in the finals. So right. He knows he's doing something, but for me personally, that's not my job. I don't want that responsibility, because, you know, to be able to do something like that, you know, it's taken away from you being the best that you could possibly be. Because if I'm focused on somebody else's job, I'm not able to do my own job.
And I've
always been about I've always been about taking care of my responsibility. You always have to have faith in the people up top, you know, because, you know, it's going to show. You know, weaknesses show. You know, leaks are always exposed. The water's coming out, you know. And so I never tried to put myself in that position to be like, hey, let me go play general manager. Let me go play owner. Let me go play this. No, I'm just going to play edge, you know, and I'm going to do it very well.
But, you know, the argument could be made, and it's just more than a conversation than anything else, brother. If you have a weak O-line, you're not going to get through, you're not going to penetrate the O-line, right? And if you know a guy or several guys, and you're hearing things in the locker room or you're experiencing things and they are stopping you from doing your job. You know, I always love how Marshawn Lynch said, if a guy's not going to block for me, I'm not going to run for him. You know, there was this mentality almost that we all work together, we're all a team, but there are certain things that work better. A running back has a better chance of accelerating through the defense if the O-line is doing their job effectively, because that's the first line of offense for you.
Yeah, but it's a lot that goes into that. That's why I can't jump on board with that statement, because of the fact that it's so much that goes into that. You know, that's why if I focus on myself, if I'm that same person that can run that 40 time and do all this training and do all those things right there, it's obvious what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And right now, everything is shown. So there's really no secret. You can see when a guy's getting hit in the backfield.
Yep.
You can see when the quarterback is holding the ball too long. You can see when the quarterback don't have enough time. Yep. So it's not one of the things.
You're basically mentioning my Jets, basically, everything you just said.
Yeah, I haven't paid attention, but they got Frank Gore, man. He just ran for 16,000 yards. So we found some silver lining in that season.
Yeah, no, I know. And he's the only lining.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
But continue. No, but that's the thing about it, is like, I just feel like too many people are trying to do everybody else's job. And if you're ever in a locker room, it's usually the losers, they get together, or when things not happening right, they get together, they talk about everything that's wrong.
Uh-huh.
And the guys that's winning, or the guys that's having successful, they're usually talking positive and trying to move forward. You know, I just try to always stay on the positive side and say, man, look, I'm doing what I can. I'm not going to bash this guy or bash that guy, because ownership sees it, the general manager sees it, the coaches see it. They see the same film, you know. But I have to be able to do my responsibility too. I have to be able to take care of my responsibility and make sure that I'm able to do the things that I'm capable of doing. Because it got to the point in my career where, you know what, edge wasn't edge,
Right.
you know? And I can be honest with that. You know, I can be honest because, like, there's certain things I say, like, nah, I used to would have made this move or I would have made that move. So when the clock ticks and your time is up, or when you're not playing to a certain level, it's going to show. You know, it's just, how do you go about it? Do you go out and you bash everybody else? I'm not that type of person. I'm a man. You know, I'm a man about everything. You know, I'm not going to bash this person or bash that person. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to try to uplift this person. I'm trying to help this person. And if they're not good enough, man, owner, GM, coach, do your job. It's not my job, you know? And that's always been my approach, because anytime things not going right for a person, most people not going to admit it, because everybody, they're self-absorbed. They're thinking about, oh, no, if this would have happened, that would have happened, that would happen. When it's like, no, I'm not going to take on that approach. I don't like that approach. And you know, and people who take on that approach, I just sit back and watch and let it all play itself out.
Yeah. No, it's very much your personality. It's very much what made you the champion that you are. And I'm wondering what it was like for you when you got that call that said, you know, you got elected to the Hall of Fame. And who was the first person you called?
Well, you know, I had been through the process, right? So I had been through the process, and like, I'm never going to embarrass myself. And, you know, they usually have you go to these hotel rooms and do the knock on the door. I wasn't participating in none of that, you know. Right. And, you know, so.
Well, why do you think it's embarrassing yourself? I'm sorry, I just want to kind of just sink in.
I mean, I think Deion Sanders just did a segment on it. I think last week or something I saw it. Right. It's pretty interesting. You know, I laugh at it because it's the truth. You know, they have you sit in this room, you and your family, and you're waiting on to knock on the door. You know, some people, you know, and if you have 15 people, out of 15 people, like 5 or 7
get the knock on the door.
But the other part,
8 people or 10 people,
however many it is, they don't get no knock.
And they're there with their families.
And you're there with your family. So it's like, who wants to go through that? You know, like, I wasn't going to go through that, so I never was going to be in the room. And I felt like the whole process was about, you know, making things convenient for TV, making things convenient for everybody else, and forgetting about the people that's really affected. Now, the guys that's getting selected, it's excellent. It's A1. It's a great thing. And, you know, if you're one of those guys that say, hey, you know what, I'm a first ballot, I know I'm going to get picked. Okay, it's an easy, I'm going to bring the whole band, you know. But if you're one of those guys that say, hey, you know, it might take a couple of years, or, you know, the process, you know, it could be a 50-50. You know, I never agreed with that, so I'm not going to put myself in that situation.
Yeah, but why even bring your family then? Why just go by yourself? Or just go with you and maybe a homeboy or your agent? Don't do that, but then, so if you don't get picked, it's all good. You're there to celebrate and enjoy. But if you do get picked, it's, hey, Mom, get on the plane. We got you.
Nah. For me, it was, I'm laying in the bed. I got the phone call. hey, what's? I'm not getting off my schedule to make things convenient for somebody else that could potentially inconvenience me. I'm not doing that. You know.
Got you.
It's like, no, we're gonna do this thing the right way. We're gonna make sure that
you're gonna do it the edge way. You're gonna do it the edge way.
Yes, you know, and if there's any opportunity for me to do something the edge way, it's pretty much going to be done. Because I'm not going to go through all that. You know, like, I'm not part of the dog and pony show. I'm not with all that. You know, I'm more so like, hey, look, am I in or not? You know, And I understand why it's done because you get emotions, you get all these things.
Yeah,
but
of course.
for me, it's more so like, hey, I'm not gonna have my family come down. I'm not about to go through this, and I'm not about to go through this a disappointment, you know. And other people, they may think different, you know. But for me, I'm not gonna do that, and I don't want to inconvenience the hall. I don't want to inconvenience the people in the production and all that. But I gotta take care of me, you know. I gotta take care of me because I think if I would have done that, and because I think I went through the process like 4 times. I
Right.
don't know how many times I was a finalist or whatever.
4 times.
Yeah. So you actually go to that city where the Super Bowl is at. But this year's in Miami, so it's in Miami, and it's good because I'm right down the street, and then part of my business down there, I'm in the club business, and
Yeah.
we're gonna have fun regardless.
Right.
You know,
Gonna get it
so.
popping.
So it doesn't inconvenience me, but I'm not about to be sitting around waiting on all this stuff right here. It's business as usual for me. It's like, okay, you know, it's like, let's assume that I don't get in, you know. I'm not mad, I'm not disappointed. Because think about, I've heard stories of guys, you know, they've been there and it just rubs them the wrong way. It makes them mad and makes them like, it loses their thrill for being in the hall because
of
you had to
course.
go through all that. I'm like, it didn't bother me because I know I'm not gonna be. I wasn't first ballot. I know I wasn't first ballot, and whenever my time comes, it'll come. But it's gonna come on my time, you know.
And it did.
And it worked out. And it happened right in Miami. Had a
What
ball.
was the ceremony like when they put on the jacket and you got
Well,
to?
we haven't done it yet.
Okay.
You know what we did because of Corona.
Right.
Everything got pushed back till 21.
Right.
So we'll go through that whole process. But for me, in is in. It doesn't matter. It's immortal forever. You know, nobody can take that away.
But I
from
mean,
me.
they fitted you for the jacket, no? I mean, you're
Yeah,
already
you
fitted.
do all that stuff right
Right.
there, but
Yeah.
that's gonna be a year
But
later.
what was
I'm
that like? Like, I'm asking you, like, they put the yellow jacket on you, man. Like,
Well,
you're-
it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm in. You know, I'm in now, but then I'm also tired from ripping and running the streets too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to deal with both. You know, you
Right.
like now you're trying to suck up the whole moment.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you're like, dang, you know, I finally got in. It's a dream come true. It's one of the things you set out to do. And
Yeah.
for me, like my number is 336, you know, and you think of all the people that's played. I'm 336 player to ever get in there, you know. So I always think back of all those kids that's on the park, all those kids that's playing football, and it's thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that's playing ball.
Right.
And you look back and say, man, out of all of them, I reached the highest of the high. No matter where you look at it, no matter where a person puts you at, nobody can take it away from you.
No, they couldn't take it away from you from Miami. They couldn't take it away from you from high school.
Exactly.
They can't take it away from you, period, because you were raised like that. Like the very few people that I've met that are cut from that cloth, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's real special cloth you cut from, regardless of the Hall of Fame or not.
Yeah.
Why Orlando though? Do you mind me asking? Like why Orlando?
Well, Orlando.
And I actually heard a very interesting story about the house you got. But but why Orlando?
Well, Orlando was centrally located, right? You know, I grew up in Southwest Florida, and then I went up to Miami. You know, and like Immokalee is an hour or so from Miami, and Orlando it's a central location, not too fast, not too slow, you know, and you know the surrounding city is Naples, you know, but Naples is too slow and it's a retired place, you know, and so what I did, I gave a bunch of my family members the option. I said, hey, we're going to Orlando. You know, I bought everybody houses. I bought everybody a house, and I say, I'm gonna buy the house. I'm gonna pay the tax. You'll be rent free for the rest of your life. Whoever wants to come. So I bought probably 7 to 10 houses that people that came, the ones that decided to come up and stay in Orlando. And I always liked Orlando because it was, you know, it's not slow, but it's not fast, you know. Miami, where I like to be at personally, but I don't want the family there. I don't want everybody there. You know, Miami is where I went to college. You know, I've been in Miami for over 20 years. Been in Miami longer than I actually been where I grew up. Right. You know, so you kind of, you know, that becomes like your home away from home. But it's a fun place,
Right.
you know, but it's for a certain type of person. You know, you got to be up for that type of lifestyle, up for that type of movement. And I don't want to have the whole family there. I want to move all my family there. You know, Orlando was more controlled, and it's a good spot. You know, and
Yeah.
I'm glad we actually came here. And you can always get here, and then, and, you know, especially when you're traveling, like you can always get to Orlando from any city. You know, and that's due to the fact that you have Disney and all that.
Yeah.
But I can always get to Orlando, and when I look at the decision, it was perfect. You know,
Yeah.
you know, I took my time and I moved everybody up here. You know, everybody that wanted to move up here, and you know, paid for everybody a house. They don't have no rent. They don't have no nothing.
That's beautiful.
And, you know, but that's all part of you being in this position.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's not something that you go through and you do it just to be like, oh, I'm bragging on this and I'm bragging on that.
No.
You know, like, no, you know what?
That's the way you did it, is with such humility. Like
Yeah,
you actually,
kind of low key with
yeah, because it's about love and family. It was how you were raised.
yeah,
You were raised around family. You always had your O-line around you,
yeah,
you know, and now they're here, you know, you want that same kind of loving line around you, you know, in where you're settled. I love the story about the house, because the house you bought, the guy didn't want to sell it to anybody.
all right,
It was like a beautiful piece of property.
5
He
acres.
didn't want to sell it. He'd been on it 3 generations, I think, his grandfather, his father, and him.
It was a long time.
And he damn sure wasn't going to sell it to an athlete or anybody. And you went up and sat on the porch and just had a beer with him.
Yeah, it's an old guy. He's just sitting out there. I just rode up there. I looked at the property online, you know, and it was a big piece of property. I was like, you know, I want to get this place that we don't actually live in, but everybody lives in, you know. And it was big, and like I'm friends with Rohan Marley, and we would always talk about how we had a family house, you know. And so, and I was like, I'm gonna get that, you know, we're gonna get the family house one in Orlando, and it's right in the thick of things. And so this guy got a beautiful piece of property that people don't really understand, because as an investor, you look at what you can do with the property. You look at it and say, okay, I can chop the property up and I can make this and I made it. And it was narrow, you know. And so I'm like, man, you know what? I can get that property that I want, because it's 5 miles from Universal, it's 10 miles from the mall. You can get to everything. It's right in Metro West. And I said, man, this right here would be the perfect property. So I looked it up online. I hadn't seen it, and so I come up here to see my brother, and I'm like, man, this is ride up in this property, you know. So I ride back there, and I see this older white guy, you know, sitting on it, and you know, like when you're African American, you see the white, you're like, man, let me get from around here, you know, like, let me. But he was just so inviting, you know what I'm saying? Because I come unannounced, you know. It's like, you know, you sitting up here, man, you're like, man, I'm pulling up on these people, because I'm not knowing that somebody actually living in the place, you know. I'm thinking we just gonna ride back there and we'll see it. But it wasn't no rejection or wasn't anything. The guy he just sitting down there, we just went to talking, and it kind of started from there. And when I looked at the property, and he didn't want the neighbors to get it. They had this fight.
Dude, he didn't want anybody to get it.
But it's the conversation we had. He didn't want the neighbors, because they had this thing about this easement. They put this wall, and they were trying to force him out or something like that, you know. And he was set on that, you know. And at having the conversations and going through everything, you know, one of the things he want was I coming to buy this property, and was I gonna sell it to them? You know. And so those were part of the conversation, and it's like, nah, you know, I want, you know, we want a big piece of property for my family, for everybody to come. And so, long story short, we ended up making a good deal, bought the property, and then I got with the city of Orlando to buy more property to the side up. So I made it wider than what it was from what he had. And then to this day, we have the property there that all the kids come through. We have my camps there. We have and I actually built a nice weight room, training facility there for the kids.
Right.
And I try to keep it where it's still that old school type of work, because I got an old school work ethic, you know. And so I try to keep that same type of system in place. and we still had a house. We had a basketball court, and it's there. You know, we don't actually live there. Like sometimes people live there, but the family, they know that's the house that everybody comes to. Every event is there, and we have over 1,000 people there. You know, and it even got to where I would rent it out for parties, and we had some crazy parties there that was on the news and all that stuff. You know, we had, you know, because it was one of those things where you had to have an eye for it. You know.
Well, what I love that you do is you take a lot of kids who want to get into D1 leagues, who might not have the structure or might not have the family closeness that you had, and you train them. You basically give them the opportunity to get ready for that, and give them that sense of ownership that you had with that freedom, you know, to give them that ability, man. It's such a blessing, man. And you are such a blessing to this community, bro. And
Yeah,
that's like, I'm just, you know, nah, you are, bro. Like, there's a lot of kids, you know, when I was doing research for this podcast, I was talking to some kids from Olympia. I was talking to kids from Dr. Phillips, but my kids went to Lake Highland.
Right.
And they all talk about how if you're lucky enough, EJ will scoop you up and bring you to camp.
Yeah.
And they say that with like reverence. If you're lucky enough, he might scoop you up and take you to camp.
Like,
what does that mean?
Luck. I don't know if they call it luck. It's one of those things where, you know, it's like you try to give them an opportunity. You know, it's like when we started looking at the numbers of how much the parents have to pay for summer camp, you know, and it's like $100 and something a week per kid. And you start talking about people that have 2 and 3 kids, and you're like, that's pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
And
especially an athletic kid.
Yeah.
And
so
those
it's
camps
like,
even more money.
Yeah. How are you gonna send the kids to camp, you know, to do that? And so I was like, I want to have my own camp that's free. You know, I don't want to turn into a babysitting service.
Right.
But in the beginning, I was actively involved every day, you know. Now I have so much going on that I have my cousins, I have family, they're running the same system in place, and I pop in more. But and that was part of the process, you know. I have friends around here that actually do the same thing I do on a different level, and we combine and say, oh, bring the kids, and we're gonna feed them, we're gonna make sure we train them. So for 6 to 8, we started out with 8 weeks, but then 8 weeks became too long, and it started tapping into their respective high school programs. So we started making it where it was 6 weeks. And, you know, and the thing about it, I have my kids out there, and I have a lot of family that come in from other places, and I always like the kids to kind of train against guys or kids that come from different places. Because if you go to Olympia, you're always training with them all the time. If you go to Dr. Phillips, you train with them all the time. Yeah. But if I bring somebody from North Carolina, I bring somebody from California, I bring somebody from South Florida, now it's a different measuring stick. So we took pride in doing that, bringing different groups of guys to come down. And so it's a good thing, and it's something that as long as they're interested in, the place is there. We don't have to never worry about us leaving there, and we'll be there. And we're going to continue and try to get as many kids a chance to make it to the next level or even make it in college as possible. But it really comes down to being up to them, because it's a system that's in place that's about, you know, putting in the work.
I'm just curious because, you know, obviously Canton is hopefully going to come up this year for you.
Yeah, it is. It's August.
Yeah.
It's already set.
So, first of all, how many people are going to Canton?
You know, at first
and how many Marleys roll in?
Yeah,
how many Marleys are included in that list, brother?
Nah, like for me at first it was, you know, the first year is,
yeah.
First year, you know, you're like, okay, I might have a bunch of people.
Right.
Now I'm kind of like, man, I'm like, you know, the process and everything, and you know, I really don't know. I really don't know. Maybe once everything rolls back around again right now, but you know, it'll be good. Yeah. But I'm not gonna have as many people as I would have had last year.
Right.
You know?
Now I got you. And off the top of the head, or are you gonna write a speech?
No, I have a speech. I had already started writing a speech. You always want to write it. You want to write the speech, and just to kind of put you in the right mindset, make sure the structure is right. Cause you don't want to be just off the top of the head. We might go too far this or too far that, you know. And me, I'm real strategic where I just flow with it, make sure that I give the proper things the proper attention.
Yeah, give everybody their flowers that they deserve,
Yeah, so
including
I
grandma.
want to do it, do it right. You want to do it right, but it's not gonna be one of those long drawn out things. It's gonna be, if you know me, I'm kind of straight to it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but it's a year later, so we just kind of see how it goes.
Nah, I personally can't wait to see that moment. And man, I feel like I chased this interview for 3 months, and Edge, I could keep you here for another 3 hours, but it's your time right now. I'm gonna let you go do your thing, but
It's up to you,
brother,
man.
I can't thank you enough. I
Nah,
can't thank you
tell
enough for your
man,
time and your
this
energy.
What makes it better.
Yeah, man, and I look forward to more that what you have in store. The other thing that I love really quickly is I love your balance, because you're a family man. You have really strong principle. You have strong conviction, and you own strip clubs. I love that balance, brother.
Yeah, you have to.
I love the balance. I love how.
I'm protecting my later years.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's incredible
You have
balance.
to protect the later years.
Yeah. No, I love that. My wife will never let me hang out with you after this interview, but this was awesome.
Hey, man, it's up to you, man. I know who runs the house. Tell her I said good job.
That's exactly right.